I did 2,815 squats in a month. And I'm going to share in this video what I learned from that experience. Make sure you like and subscribe if you haven't already, and let's get right into it. So, before I get into the four things I learned, I do want to say this too. I was aiming for 10,000 squats in a month. Obviously, 2,815 falls way short of that. So I was a little ambitious, but that's kind of why I wanted to talk about what I learned here. But either way, it approximates to about 100 squats a day if you average that. So anyhow, let's get into those four things I learned. The first thing I learned, and it might seem kind of like duh, but the first thing I learned is that doing a lot of squats makes them easier. Now, again, I understand that that's kind of like intuitive, but the reason why I say it made them easier is because doing squats, especially if you're going all the way down to parallel, where the top of your thighs is parallel to the ground, sometimes, especially those first few, your legs will be kind of creaky and this and that. But what I found was that as the days and weeks passed on, doing squats was just like it seemed like it was less and less likely that I would experience any sort of creakiness, in my joints. And so I say that to really emphasize, especially if you're like me and you're like 40 or older, this is important because squatting is such an important move. Fundamentally, it's a fundamental body move. It's important to be able to do squats, like basic body weight squats with ease, because that will ensure that you have a certain level of leg strength and it'll help you to stay safe from falling and different things like that. So it's very important, to keep in mind. The more you do squats, the more easy it gets. Not even necessarily from like a how strong you are perspective, but just from the movement being easy to do, if that makes sense. Which leads me to my second point, which is I personally need rest days in between. So these 2,815 squats that I did were not done all like day after day after day after day. I did, I would do squats on my typical leg days as well as on my cardio days, which usually like were days that are adjacent to each other, Tuesday and Wednesday, Friday and Saturday. Okay. The reason why I skip days is because at this age, or I even say once I turned about 37, 38, recovery became more of a thing for me. It's like if I don't give enough time for recovery, what happens is I tend to have somewhat persistent soreness in my muscle. And then also even in my joints become more achy and whatnot. So I wasn't going to do squats every day. Now, if I had done squats every day, I'm sure my number would have been higher. But just knowing my body, I decided I opted to give my body a chance to rest a bit more, rather than doing back to back to back to back to back. Okay. Just something to kind of keep in mind. Recovery is key. I recorded a video about that recently. The third thing I learned, which also might seem intuitive, but I'm going to say it, is that doing all those squats is boring, man. It's boring. Just kind of think about, especially aiming for 10,000 squats, doing them all in one sitting. Like, even if I just, like, one thing I did was I started a timer for 5 minutes and I would just kind of do as many squats as I could. Of course, you got to take a little bit of rest here and there because your legs start to burn, but you're just sitting there and it's boring. And so, one thing I did, which I recorded a video about recently, is I would set a timer to go off every 15 minutes and do a few squats every 15 minutes. A good way to break up the day, a good way to get a little bit of leg work in while also improving your circulation, helping to prevent against some of the issues that come with sitting down all day. That kind of helped make it a little easier, less boring, because it kind of helped to break my day up and even kind of help me to reset from my work. But doing a whole lot of squats, especially in one sitting, is some boring stuff. Let me note this as well, something I should have said earlier. Even as I was doing squats, I was doing a lot of my same leg workouts. And my leg workouts would typically include squats, body weight squats, body weight lunges. I do box jumps sometimes. I do, deadlifts. I do deadlifts once a week. Um, And so I was doing a lot of that same stuff, including, the increased volume of squats, bodyweight squats, that is. And the fourth thing, which I think a lot of people be wanting to see know about, is the question of, did my legs increase in size? So I measured one of my legs, my thigh to be more specific, just a few days into the challenge, and I measured 21 and 7/8 of an inch. Now I tried to be pretty consistent when I measured again, like as far as like the location, but it's kind of hard to do that. And so I measured today, and my measurement was like 21 and a half inches, which, you know, at best would seem to show that there's not any change and there's no increase in leg size. Or it could even mean that they got smaller. I don't know. But it's kind of hard to know because sometimes, unless there's very significant change, it's kind of hard to know if it'll really show up with that tape measure or not. So anyway, I didn't experience massive leg growth. I feel like I saw a slight change in shape for sure, because I would look in the mirror and that type of deal. And I feel like I did see a slight change in like shape of the muscle, looking maybe a tad more muscular. Now, will I continue to do all these squats? Now, I'm not going to do that many, but I'm probably going to do more than I was. I would typically in a workout do like 200 body weight squat. Was it 200? Yeah, I would do about 200. Well, no, 100 body weight squats. So maybe I will, whenever it's leg day, do like 200, because I'm more used to them now, and just kind of have that as a staple with every leg workout. The thing is, if you really want to change your legs with squats, the most efficient way to do it would be to use weight, to do like barbell squats or something like that, and increase the weight over time, and your legs will grow there. With body weight squats, I do believe that you can see your legs change over time, but it'll be a lot more gradual and it'll probably be a lot less growth, just simply because that very light load is so easy. If you can just do hundreds of reps, it takes a lot to really stimulate the muscle in the way that'll make it grow. But I think it's a good leg sculptor, for sure, if you're willing to be patient enough for that. So anyway, that's my experience doing 2,815 squats in about a month's time. Let me know what you think. If you aim for 10,000 squats in a month, or 2,000 squats in a month, or whatever. And yeah, just remember, if you don't have a gym, you can do some things with your body. It's like it might be more efficient at the gym, but at the same time, don't let that be an excuse to not work out at all. All right, y'all. Thank you for watching.